Okay, folks. I want to thank everybody for showing up. Okay. All right, we have only a few minutes because at 4 o'clock we have Pastor who's going to continue with his church business. Just want to say, take a little moment for prayer, and could we stand for prayer? Wonderful and loving Father, we want to thank you for the day so far. You've blessed us, and I know you're going to continue to bless us throughout the day. We thank you for Brother Barrett for putting together today's presentation. May it some way be of benefit to the hearers. We know we are faced with these challenges, sometimes health challenges, but you always provide a way. Thank you again for being our Father, our health provider, our healer. Bless always here today. We ask this in your Son's name. Amen. Okay, our speaker for today, as I mentioned, is Brother Leonard Barrett. Brother Barrett has a bachelor in chemistry, a master's in nutrition and mathematics. He's a clinical nutritionist and educator, married with one wife, 3 children. He loves the brethren, family, and God, and is very active in evangelism. He does street ministry, and he visits the nursing homes as well. And his hobby, or his favorite, he just mentioned that he likes classical religious hymns. And he sings. Okay, so let's welcome Brother Barrett, and hopefully we all can benefit in some manner. And whatever you hear today, you can spread it to the brethren. Okay, spread the news.
Well, good evening, everyone. How are you doing? God is good? All the time? God is good. I'm just going to ask someone to hand this out to the men for me. Since it's Men's Day, someone could hand this out for me. Just hand this out. Just hand this out. Give this out. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes. All right. One of the mistakes that most couples make is that as they are getting older, because of getting older, there are certain enjoyments between them that they take as natural. That's not true. Your lifestyle, your quality of life as you get older is dependent on how you treat your body. And so therefore what goes inside will determine what quality of life you enjoy. I had that same problem, and I was told that, okay, Leonard, you're getting older. What do you expect? And I bought into it for many years, and I decided that shouldn't be the case. Based on what I was studying, the research I was looking at, that should not be the case. There are things in nature, we call them phytochemicals, that are more potent than medications in terms of giving you the best quality of life as you get older. But somehow, somewhere along the way, we started believing that this is impossible. A speaker once said that he went to Australia, and while he was passing through customs, the agent asked him, "Are you on medication?" And he said, "No." I said, "How could that be? You're from America." You see, the body depends for its healing on nutrients, mostly nutrients. And the nutrients are in nature, the plants. How did they get there? God put them there for healing. He puts them there for our healing. In about 5, we call them blue zones. Blue zones. You know about those? They don't suffer from the conditions that the normal population suffers from, because their diet and lifestyle is different. And speaking directly to men, do not believe for one moment that because you're getting older, you cannot perform. You understand what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? Understand? All right, you understand what I'm saying? That's not true. So this evening, I'm going to show you how, I'm going to give you some information as to how we can start improving it. My first presentation is on ED, but then I'm going to go into cancer a little bit for you. Now, the paper that you have in your hand, the sheet that you have in your hand, is one that any study that I go through with you, they are not my ideas. They didn't come off the top of my head. Some of the studies you notice that come from the NIH, FDA, etc., though I have some reservation with them. They are well extensive studies. If you notice in the handout that I gave you, it says that while L-arginine, what it does, you can get this, the purchase or whatever, is that you're talking to men now. When you were younger, you produced a lot of nitric oxide, or what we call nitrogen monoxide. And what that does is that it deflates, expands the blood vessels, and more blood reaches that organ. As you get older, however, they get less and less, you produce less and less. And one of the reasons being is that you do not have enough, you're not getting enough L-arginine. A study in the Journal of Sex and Marital Therapy found that L-arginine and pycnogenol supplements helped a significant number of men after 1 month of treatment with L-arginine. A statistical non-significant number of 2 patients, 5%, experienced a normal erection. Treatment with a combination of L-arginine and pycnogenol for the following month increased the number of men with restored sexual ability to 80%. These men thought they were getting older and that nothing was happening. And they thought that it was just natural for them. But what they do now is to combine L-arginine and pycnogenol, and they noticed that the number increased to 80%. They were cured of the condition. But it didn't stop there. 92% to 92.5% of the men experienced a normal erection. We conclude that our administration of L-arginine in combination with pycnogenol caused a significant improvement in sexual function in men with ED without any side effects. Without any what? Side effects. These are natural substances. I added at the bottom I put zinc, saw-palmetto, and beta-sitosterol. Zinc is very important for the function of the prostate and testes. And what we're finding out is that there's a high deficiency of zinc in men. High deficiency of zinc. I went to my doctor about 6 years old, urologist. I might have told you this before. And he said to me, your prostate is enlarged. And I said, okay. I said, but in 2 weeks, come back to me because I have to do some tests on you. And it doesn't look that good for you. And so I went home and I started taking natural substances. I took 100 milligrams of zinc. And I took also beta-cytosterol for 2 weeks. When I went back, it went from 4 PSA of 4 to PSA 1. And it went down after that also. The doctor asked me what was going on. I told him that I treat myself nutritionally. No side effects, no more problems. So one of the things that you need, many of you men, what you need is that you get enough zinc. You have to supplement with zinc. You're not going to get enough from your food. Why? Because our soil doesn't have enough minerals that they used to have before. And again, the food that you're eating has what we call, I told you about it last week. Anybody remembers it? Roundup. Roundup. Roundup? Yeah, Roundup. Glyphosate. So what Roundup does is that it is a descalant. It's called chelation with the minerals in the plants and pull the minerals out of the plants. And you don't really, when you eat your food and consume your food, you don't get enough of those minerals. And so mineral deficiency is very common among men. I'm speaking primarily of the black community because the studies I have done and because of the many conditions that we are now experiencing in our community. Our community is the only community that finds so many fast food stores. Every corner you find one. And as your diet gets worse, so is your what? Your health. So we are finding certain things that are so common to the black community because of the food that they're consuming. I will talk more about that. Viagra. You ever heard about Viagra? All right. Those are some of the symptoms of Viagra. Headache, flushing, upset stomach. And by the way, once you start having upset stomach, it doesn't mean that's a simple thing. Because you're going to what we call intestinal distress, and a whole host of problems start there. So those are some of the problems. Back pain. So you're taking Viagra and you have back pain, you're wondering what's coming from, might come from the Viagra that you're taking. Muscle pain, nausea. I do not give much credit to that medication because I'm just thinking as my own personal thinking, that the data that they use for giving it to market that drug was picked. I mean, it was cherry-picked data. I'm just saying that. But just look at this data. Let's look at this. All right, what is saying that, and this is from the FDA, by the way, that they noticed that there's many men who have been taking Viagra suffer the ultimate. They die in the process. You know what I mean by in the process? They die in the process. They die. It's not in all cases, but too many not to say something about it. So what I do, I recommend those that I gave all a copy of this, right? I gave everybody a copy. Man, you got a copy? All right. You need to start using it. You need to take at least 100 milligrams of zinc per day. It's not toxic. You won't have any toxicity from it. Even if you have enough zinc, you're not going to have toxicity from it, right? But you need to take at least 100 milligrams of zinc per day. That's the big what? The big C, right? I'm just getting something set up for you. Just wanted to watch it. The video is about 5 minutes, 6 minutes, yeah.
Hi, it's Mr. Anderson. Over 1 million people every year develop cancer. There are over 100 different types of cancer, but many people don't really know what is cancer. And the answer to that question is very simple. If we look at a normal cell, on the inside of the cell is the nuclei, and that contains DNA. And the DNA contains genes that control the actions of the cell. And one of those important actions is how a cell makes a copy of itself, how it goes through what we call the cell cycle. And so if you take a normal cell and put it in culture, it will simply make a copy of itself. And if there's room, those cells will make copies of themselves, and they'll keep doing that until they fill up that area. And if one of these cells dies, then an adjacent cell is going to jump into that cell cycle, and it's going to fill that hole. And so that's how you went from a zygote to the trillions of cells that are inside your body. And that's also how you replace cells. And so your skin is constantly losing cells off the surface, but we're creating cells underneath that. And so the cause of all cancers is the same. There's going to be damage to the DNA. And so that DNA is made up of what are called nucleotides. And there are tons of genes in there that are controlling this cell cycle, when a cell should make a copy of itself and when it should stop dividing. And so a mutation is simply damage to that DNA. Now, it could just occur spontaneously. If we all live long enough, we're all going to develop cancer because these mutations are going to start to accrue during our lifetime. But we can also increase the rate of those mutations using the environment. And so, for example, if we smoke cigarettes, that could cause mutations to the DNA. Increases in UV radiation, we're finding that decreases in exercise, increases in certain types of diet can cause mutations, and that can cause problems in the cell cycle. And so let's say we get a mutation in this cell right here. There are going to be genes within that cell that sense something is wrong, and lots of times it'll undergo apoptosis where that cell dies and another cell moves inside. But during our lifetime, we start to accrue more and more mutations. And eventually, enough mutations build up in one of those cells, and it becomes not a normal cell, but a cancerous cell. And this takes a long time for that to occur. And so this is a pretty awful graph. This is the increase in the popularity of cigarettes. And so this is the number of cigarette smoking per person per year. And so as they were doing that, they were increasing the mutations inside their body. And we can look decades later, we see the causation. We can see an increase in lung cancer in men as well. And so as we make those mistakes in our cell, we form these cancerous cells. Now, what does a cancerous cell do? It doesn't matter that there's cells around it. It's simply going to divide and divide and divide over and over and over again. And eventually what you create is a tumor. Now, there are two types of tumor. If those cells are restricted to that one area and stay within a membrane, we call those benign tumors, and that's not cancer. But if there is no restriction to that area, it becomes what's called a malignant tumor. And that's really a definition of what cancer is. It's when we have these uncontrolled cell growth and those cells that show uncontrolled cell growth spreading throughout our body. And so this is a video of some cancerous cells. And so instead of just growing and doing the jobs of the cell, you can see they're kind of misshapen. And all they do is make copies of themselves and copies of themselves over and over and over again. That's where all the energy is going. Now, if that was restricted to one area, it wouldn't be as big a deal, but they can move to different areas of the body. And so if we have a tumor right here, it can start to invade the tissues around it. And so that tumor can not only get larger, but it can move into new areas. And if that tumor gets into the lymphatic system or the circulatory system, it can move around our body and it can settle somewhere else. And so that's the problem with a malignant tumor. And so we name cancers based on the tissues and the organs that they infect. So this would be lung cancer, but we could also have colon cancer or maybe a pancreatic cancer or breast cancer. It's basically named on the tissue of where it is. Now, each of those cancers, even though the cause is the same, damage to the DNA, which produces uncontrolled cell growth, the way they manifest the disease is going to be totally different. And so if you look at this x-ray, we can see this is somebody who has lung cancer, and there's going to be a tumor right there. And what we're finding is not only are all these different types of cancer different, but each of those individual tumors are different. And between two people, those tumors are going to be different. And even within the cells of the tumor, they're going to be different. So what does that mean? Well, even though we might treat one tumor, we're going to find that within that tumor, there are going to be different cells. Each of those have different genetic problems. And so we could treat most of the tumor, remove most of it, but it's going to come back eventually over time. And so what do we have for treatments? And so since cancer is uncontrolled cell growth, we want to find those cells as quickly as we can. And so screening is the most important thing. Once we find that cancer has developed and we find that tumor, the first thing that we want to do is we want to remove that. And so surgery is generally what happens next. We remove that tumor. We also use radiation. In other words, we're not going to be able to remove all of those cells. There are going to be extraneous cells around it. And so we can target this with ionizing radiation and we can kill all those cells. Now this has dangers as well, and so we try to restrict that to that one area, but it can cause damage to the cells around it. And then oftentimes we'll use chemotherapy. Now what's chemotherapy doing? It's going throughout your whole body, and it's targeting cells that are actively dividing, cells that are going through this cell cycle. And so that's why it affects, for example, you get a lot of nausea because it's affecting those cells in your digestive tract, or you lose your hair because it's affecting those cells that are constantly making new hair. And so with all of these, we're getting better and better at treating cancer. What's the future hold? Well, we're really just treating all cancers with these three methods the same. And so what we'll see is if we can get into the genetics and we start to understand how each of those cancers are different, then we can start to target them. And so one of the breakthroughs was Gleevec, which is one of these first drugs that's targeting a specific type of leukemia. And it was affecting a specific machinery within that cell. And so again, the more we understand about cancer, we find that they're all the same, but the causes are going to be different. And so what is cancer? It's simply uncontrolled cell growth, and I hope that was helpful.
Now, there's one treatment that was not mentioned. What was that? Nutrition intervention. Nutritional or nutrition intervention was not mentioned. But when we look at the blue zones across the globe, 5 of them, the incidence of cancer is like very low or doesn't exist. When we go to parts of Africa that are not exposed to a Western diet, we don't find that there. Maybe one case in 10 million, plus or minus. We don't find it. Many of the chronic diseases that we have in the West are not found in the blue zones. And in parts of Africa who are not exposed to a Western diet. So that's where we focus our attention as clinical nutritionists. We know that modern medicine has made tremendous advances in the area of science, but we are very concerned about what actually makes up the human body and what the human body needs. And we are not putting much attention in that direction in terms of nutrition. The body cannot function without nutrition. The body's functions rely on proper nutrition. And so if we're not giving the body, if you give a car that is running on petrol, you give it diesel, is it going to run? It's not going to run. So I strongly believe that even though modern medicine is making a lot of advances in science, they need to look a little more, much more in the area of nutrition to the body. There are many case reports that have, and this some of them documented, and you can find it in some science journals, scientific journals, the efficacy of nutrition to healing the body. Many times I put on presentations. I usually focus my presentation, and that's what in the importance of how you treat, and that's what I go, your bodies, how you treat your bodies. And I think one of the reasons why we're finding so many of our members and the population experiencing these maladies are chronic diseases. It comes down to their diet and exercise, how active you are. That's one of these I'm going to talk to you about the benefits of exercise. All right, so we've been through that in the video that cancer occurs when the cell divides under control. It divides without. Because I have limited more time, I'm going to go through this. I'm going to go to the nutrition part of it, and then I'll just cut this out because I have limited amount of time. All right. Obesity is a risk for cancer. Overweight. Obesity is a risk for cancer, as you can see. Colon cancer, gallbladder cancer, endometrium, etc., breast cancer, obesity. So the first step, what I tell my patients when they come in, what I tell them, if I notice that based on my observation, they are overweight, the first thing I like to have them do is to start getting rid of that weight. Bring the weight back into normal. Because overweight also contributes to so many different, because when you're overweight, your inflammation goes above normal. And once the body is systemically inflamed and the immune system is compromised, and you can develop a lot of conditions, chronic conditions. So the first thing you need to do is to get off the weight. All right? All right, so obesity is risk for pancreatic cancer, esophagus cancer, kidney, etc. And what obesity also, I didn't put up there, for those people, most times when you're having acid reflux, it's because of your being overweight. In many cases, when you're overweight, you have this acid reflux. And what it does is that it goes up into, the acid comes out of the stomach, goes up into the esophagus, and irritates it. It can become so severe that you might develop what we call Barrett's disease. Not my disease. Barrett's disease, that's the name they're given to it, Barrett's disease, okay? So overweight is a big problem. All right, so nutrition, as you see there, decrease cancer, achieve and maintain a healthy body weight, be physically active as part of everyday life. Now, when I talk to people about being physically active, they okay, I'm at work, and I walk a lot, and so forth. No, that's not exercise. It has to be structured. You have to plan it, you have to structure it. One of the best exercises you can do, very easy, is to walk. 2 or 3 miles per day. You walk 2 miles to where you're going and 2 miles back. If you walk half an hour, that's 2 miles, average 2 miles. So if you walk back, that's 4 miles. So walking, and many of us do not do enough walking. Too much television, and for young people, video games and so forth and so on. You know, that's too much. All right, fruits and vegetables. It says that people who develop cancer tend not to have low what? Intakes of raw and fresh vegetables, leafy green vegetables. You'll find what I do basically. Okay. For me, what I do, I got a blender, and I try to get the one that pulverizes the fruits and the vegetables so you get most of the nutrients out of it. So you don't have to have much digestion going on. That digestion is not important. But you have and pulverize it. So in the course of the week, what I do, if you want to lose weight, make your diet for these 2-3 weeks primarily smoothies with all kind of fruits and vegetables. And it will keep you full, by the way. It will keep you full so you don't feel hungry. Fruits and vegetables. So I get my pineapples, apples, etc., etc. And I put all of those together and I blend them. And I use that for my breakfast, my lunch, and dinner might have something, but it keeps you away from being hungry. So you automatically you lose weight. You can do that way too, all right? But you're getting all this good nutrient. 75% of Americans do not eat enough fruits and vegetables. You need to get that in your diet. Appetite is not hunger. Okay, occupational and environmental factors. Now, he mentioned also about smoking, but also we are finding out that the type of food you eat can be a trigger for cancer. Your diet, poor diet, can be a trigger for cancer. So for those of you who love a lot of fries, and Burger King and so forth, fatty foods and so forth, the more you eat those stuff, your risk for cancer goes up. And cancer is not limited to older people. We are finding now that it's very common, it's getting more common among young people. Why? Because of a lot of sodas, fast foods and so forth. We're finding that it become very common among young people. Now, these are some of the other factors, and so, I want to say something about Helicobacter pylori. This is bacteria that you find in your stomach. And sometimes you find yourself having a lot of stomach pain, have it checked out. Because there's a possibility that an indication that you're high risk or something is going on there, which possibly might be beginning of something serious. So you should have it checked out. Medical factors. I know we have doctors in the room. We do. I work with doctors and everything, and I love working with doctors. They help me a lot too. But we now know that approximately 55% of medications are unnecessary. Check that out. You can go look into NIH, PubMed. You'll find the research. Now, am I saying that you should get off of your medications? Nope. You might kill yourself. You have to work with your doctor. Because when you take medications, what happens is that your body now gets used to the medications. You're getting benefits, yes. But for you to get weaned off the medication, you have to check with the doctor because you might even end up being worse or even die in the process. So you must work with your doctor, all right? All right, we have this bad report about soy. It is bad for you. Don't eat it, it's bad for you. The science is not saying that. The science is saying soy is good for you. They say soy has this hormone in it. It doesn't have hormones. Plants don't make hormones. Animals make hormones. Plants don't make cholesterol. Animals make cholesterol. So, but what we find here, we find the structure of the molecule has some similarity to estrogen, and they're saying that it is bad for you. Let me just go through some of these things. And soy is good for prostate cancer and many other cancers too. All right, before I get to that, omega-3. Anybody knows what that is? Omega-3? Omega-3? Fish oil, they get it from fish oil, right? And salmon, okay. I didn't know this. It's a very important nutrient, omega-3. 98% of the American population do not have in their system omega-3 fatty acids. What does it do? It's important for health, for brain function, for nerve function, just about your heart, everything, and every organ and system in your body. You need omega-3. I take omega-3 every day because of the importance. And when you're getting older, the reason why some of us develop certain neurologic conditions is because we are sometimes lacking in these vital nutrients, and one of those is omega-3. You must take omega-3. And some people are afraid to go and buy. It's not, I'm going to give you some time to. Listen, if you want to live healthy, I'm sorry, but you got to spend some money on yourself. It might not be much. Maybe $10 or $5 a day or so forth, but you must spend something on yourself. Okay. And by the way, it says there also that omega-3 slow cancer growth, cancer cell. You notice that? It slows the growth of cancer cells and increases oxygenation. Cancer cells do not love a lot of oxygen. So, all right, cancer cells love glucose. So those of us who like a lot of bread and pasta and cookies and so forth, you now raise your risk of developing what? Cancer. I'm not saying that anybody here will never have cancer whatsoever. I'm not saying that. And if you live long enough, everybody will. But I'm just talking about us. What I'm saying here is that you can reduce the risk of your developing cancer. Cancer is a ravaging disease, a terrible disease. And my cousin and my brother died from it. And the way in which their body, they just deteriorate, it's really heartrending. Donuts. Let me see hands. Donuts. Get rid of donuts. Get rid of them. The more you eat these sugary stuff, the risk for cancer goes up. The risk goes. Now listen, I'm talking also because the young people are here, also to the young people. Sugar in excess is toxic. What it does to the young people in my class, I'm a teacher, is that when they drink a lot of soda, they go to sleep after a while, but first they're what? They are very aroused, and so forth, and they're very active, and they move around the class, and they cause trouble. After a while, they just... What is happening? That sugar makes you produce a lot of dopamine, and you get this high. But the body can't produce that amount of dopamine forever, so after a while, it gets low and low, and then they crash. And so in both directions, they're not learning what? Anything, all right? Because the brain is not really focusing because of the high amount of sugar they're taking in, large amount of sugar. All right? Good food, fruits and vegetables. Okay. All right, these are some of the benefits of soy, flavones. It has this kind of chemical known as the flavones, which is very potent against cancer cells. There are people who have used nutrition to reverse cancer. Not everybody's the same. We are unique. There are some people that have used it to reverse cancer, or slow down this progression. They have used, and many people have done this. Only that has not been what? Documented. But there are many people who have done this. I'm not saying everybody going to experience the same thing. And one of the foods that they use, by the way, one of the foods that they use is soy. Not in excess. Everything must be what? Moderate. All right, so those are some of the benefits of soy. What? Yeah, well. All right. So I'm going to stop it here. Any questions? I could go more into this. Any questions? How essential is it what?
Non-GMO, yeah. Nowadays is a big one. In other words, you should be informing what you're doing. Is there a benefit of taking the regular one versus non-GMO, organic?
What benefits of taking them GMO? Well, once it's organic, it's non-GMO.
There's some organic GMOs. GMOs are genetically modified. All right? So, in fact, I do one thing. You have heirloom seeds versus regular seeds. A little bit more expensive. Assuming you get all the benefits from the out there, is there a difference?
All right, with organic foods, right, there's no pesticides. You don't use any sort of kind of pesticides.
But they could be genetically modified.
Yeah, let me just explain this. GMOs are genetically modified organisms like food and so forth, okay? What they do is that they take a gene from a bacteria and plant it into the genome of the plant. And by doing so, the plant now becomes resistant to pesticides. And one of the pesticides that they use most is Roundup, or we call the scientific name glyphosate. What it does is that when Roundup goes, you use it on the plants, any plants, it goes into the leaves and goes into the plant, and it destroys the enzymes and the plants die. That doesn't happen with GMO plants because GMO plants are resistant to the pesticide. Organic now means you don't use any form of what? Pesticides. Because if you use any form of pesticides on organic foods, you're going to die. If you use GMO, if you use glyphosate on those foods, they're going to die. And so the difference between organic and GMO is that on organic, on organic foods, you don't use so much pesticides like glyphosate and so forth and Roundup, but on GMOs you use glyphosate, which also, it doesn't destroy the plants. Well, with your organic foods, you're not consuming any pesticides. Yeah, because pesticides can be carcinogenic. In other words, can cause cancer and a lot of problems. So organic food I recommend more than other types of foods. Yes. Can you just, they'd like to hear? Could someone just, because the rest of the people are not hearing.
I think it came from a serious study that our tap water, even though it's the message is being conveyed by the municipalities that it's safe, that there are a lot of contaminants in it, which are carcinogenic. So, what's your view on the water?
My thing is this. You remember what happened in what's the name? The Flint, right? Michigan. Then we thought it was only Michigan. Everywhere was safe. Then we hear it afterward like what? So why should we think our water is safe here? One of the things with water here that they add to this chlorine. Chlorine, when you add chlorine to water, it becomes hydrochloric acid. So when you drink the top water, you're adding a lot of acids to your system, and your digestive system becomes acidic. The stomach is acidic, it's a pH of 2. But as you leave from the stomach into the duodenum and the remaining parts of the digestive system of your gut, it's more alkaline. But if you continue drinking a lot of acid, eventually the stomach is not only the stomach going to be acidic, but also the intestines are going to be acidic. And what it does, it makes you produce a lot of fungus like candida. And that will that meant a lot of problems from there. Things like dysbiosis. Dysbiosis means that you have overgrowth of harmful bacteria, microbes in the gut. It's also have what we call intestinal permeability, which means that you have what we call leaky gut syndrome, which means that other molecules that are so large are now leaking into the bloodstream and causing autoimmune disease because the body, the immune system attacking these large molecules, thinking that they are harmful. And so from one autoimmune disease, you can develop many autoimmune diseases, including thyroiditis. Should I continue? So what I'm saying here is that what the doctor said is so true. I stay away from tap water. Okay, you can filter it. You can filter it, right? Somebody filter your water? You do? I am not sure about if you can move the molecules, chlorine molecules, by using a filter. That I'm not sure about as yet.
There are companies that will give you, they'll do the analysis for you. Let's say you're upstate or some other place. They'll tell you exactly what you're dealing with.
Okay, then that's good. That's good. I'm not seeing any studies or any information as yet that it removes the chlorine from the water. Because once you add chlorine to water, it becomes hydrochloric acid. And if you continue drinking that, your gut now becomes, not only stomach, the remaining portions, become acidic. Pastor? All right, bottled water. Let me say this, they do not add any sort of, I'm not speaking for any one company. How must I say this? I drink bottled water, and I drink a bottled water of pH 9.5, and I test it for myself. Essential, and the pH is close to 9.5, it's not really 9.5. But when I use Poland Spring, when I test Poland Spring for the pH, Poland Spring water is below 7. It is slightly acidic. So that would be a better substitute for tap water. When it comes to micro harmful bacteria and so forth and so on, I have not had a problem. But I use Essential. And one of the reasons why I use Essential is because there's no chlorine is in it, and the bottle doesn't have BPA, biphenyl A, which is a very powerful carcinogen, and it dissolves into the water little by little from the plastic, and you drink it, you take it in. That's another. And since you mentioned this, let me just say this. None of us are going to live forever. We know that. We know none of us are going to live forever. But we see what certain illness can cause to people. You don't want to be there, and if you can reduce the risk, wouldn't you? I've seen it in my family. I'm not saying that you're going to 100% insulate it. What I'm saying is that you can reduce the risk. So what I do in my practice and myself is try to reduce the risk of developing certain conditions. I can tell you this basically, by the way, that I have reversed certain conditions I once had. I was very sick, very, very sick. And my belly was out here, my big stomach and everything. And I used nutrition intervention to reverse many conditions I once had. I had intestinal distress. I had atrial fibrillation, AFib. And I think I should tell you this. Should I tell you? All right, let me tell you. Let me tell you. All right. Now, before I made a statement, before I made a statement, I have to do this because of my training and what I've done, right? What is my training? But before I do this, let me just say this to you. Do not do it on your own. You have to be guided in the process. Did I make it clear? Can somebody write it? Put in video as a disclaimer. You can't do this on your own. Made that clear? For about 2 years straight, 1.5 years, I was having this atrial fibrillation, AFib. And I went and I did my test and everything. The doctor said, "You're fine. You don't see any problems with you." I was eating right and everything. My nutrition was good right up. Everywhere I go, you're good, you're fine. But still yet I was having AFib. It's alarming, by the way. I'm just working, just beating like that. And in my classroom, I'm teaching, just beating like that. And then I found out what the problem was. The problem was metoprolol. Metoprolol. Anybody knows what that is? Metoprolol is, let me just say this to you right now, do not do this on your own. Metoprolol, and I spoke to the cardiologist about it, and I told him about it. And he said, no, it should go the other way. It should be going the other way. You shouldn't be having this. And I told him what I did. He said, and I said to him, Doc, the nervous system relies heavily on calcium. If I'm using a calcium blocker for so long, what do you expect? I stopped taking it, and the condition reversed. I don't have it anymore. Thank you, Jesus. Never anymore. But the point I'm making here is that you're not going to live forever. Nobody's going to live forever. But if you can reduce the risk of certain conditions, wouldn't you do that? Diet is one of the most important steps that you should take. Eh? And easiest. But you also have to what? This friend of mine, she came, by the way, I'm not going to talk about prostate cancer, because cancer can come in any part of your body, can fall in any part of your body. But if you manage your diet properly and what? Exercise, you will live more than likely, you will live a longer life and a more productive life. Eh? Eh?
What was your condition again?
What? Say it again, Anthony.
What was the condition you had? Napoleon or something like that? You said?
Atrial fibrillation.
What exactly is that?
Your heart will start beating rapidly, and what we call tachycardia. Your heart will start beating rapidly. Metoprolol. All right, they use it to control blood pressure and so forth. It's for blood pressure. Yeah.
Meat versus vegetarian meat.
Oh, that's a big one. That's a good one. Because vegetarian meat is processed, I don't think it's the best thing for you to consume, at least not in large amounts. And again, they have too much brine, too much salt and so forth, too much brine. So I think if you, in moderation, you should be okay. But if it's too much, some people just don't eat that whatsoever. Yes.
I had a question. I keep a healthy, and I say this, I reiterate this, I keep a healthy suspicion in regards to the federal government. Certain agencies like the FDA and USDA that tell us this is good, this is not good. So again, I keep a healthy suspicion about these things. Modern medicine versus nutrition, there's always been this contention whether modern medicine is telling us the right thing, and nutrition, which makes sense to me, you can't heal with poison. I always say to myself, you got to heal with nutrients to heal your body. We got some medical doctors in the room, and we have folks who support the ideology that nutrition helps. What can we do? Because we have the federal government saying that something is organic, and we all know that pesticides and all these things, they come about to make money. So can you talk a little bit more about the argument? Why is this big contention between modern medicine and doctors and nutritionalists who obviously support the reasoning that we're going to heal with nutrition? I know that's a deep subject, but
okay. There are many doctors who have admitted to me that they know nothing in nutrition. They have gone to medical school, 4-year residency and 4-year medical school, and they haven't done not even one class in nutrition. I have many doctors who like to work directly with me, but because of some stipulations, they can't. There are doctors out there